Well, we continue on with our season previews, and we're going to one of my favorite areas of the country. We talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and St. Paul. And to do so, we have what I was told is the best-looking hosts of a fan-led Minnesota United podcast. We've got Matt and Dan from the Loony Bin podcast with us. You can download their show anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow them on BlueSky, Loony Bin podcast. And you guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us, David.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Really enjoyable to have you on our show last year and happy to join you for this preview.
Do you remember the topics we delved into when I was on?
Yeah, the history of the sandwich, I think, was one
my
of them.
favorite topic. Yeah.
Yep.
I do. And long throws, you're not a fan.
I am not a fan, and I had my what I thought was going to be my big face-off finally with Michael Boxall, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm not a fan either. I'm just good."
Well,
and I was like,
that argument.
It was so endearing too that it was like, oh man, now I'm like kind of into it because you do it and I like you now. So it was, yeah, he really reversed that one on me. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on the field in Minnesota. Unfortunately, there's a lot going on off the field, but we're going to try and focus on the soccer here. Full disclosure for everyone listening, you are on the verge of going to listen to the James Rodriguez press conference, so we know he's been signed. We don't know what he looks like in Minnesota yet, but it has been an eventful offseason. Let's start as we do with all of these in 2025. As you look back with a little bit of time, what was the 2025 season and what do you take away from that for Minnesota United?
Yeah, 2025 was in some ways historic for Minnesota United. Most points ever in our 9-year MLS history, most wins ever, and doing it with the lowest possession recorded in MLS over the last 10 years. Like, just truly sort of historic numbers. The themes of the 2025 season really were defense, counterattacking, set pieces, and just sort of a team grittiness, like a willingness to fight for each other, to sit in the trenches together and battle it out for points. And a lot of that was backed up by goalie of the year Dane St. Clair and his ridiculous save percentage. But that set piece dominance was sort of really the thread for the full season that got them to fourth place in the Western Conference. And, the long throws, Coach Ramsey, like changing the game sort of worldwide. Like if it wasn't Coach Ramsey that started to lean into long throws, someone else was going to realize that the XG you get from a long throw is better than just recycling possession. And it was going to come, but it turns out Minnesota United with Coach Ramsey in his second year as a head coach was the one to do it. But I think the moments sort of stand out for me in 2025. Getting our first ever points in Seattle in year 9, getting our first win at RSL. We hadn't won in Sandy, Utah. And then even though we lost 0-1 to San Diego in the Western Conference semis, like I think every Minnesota United fan is going to remember that Seattle series, and we don't care that we didn't win a game. We really do not care that we did not win a single game in that series because those PKs in Minnesota at Allianz with Dane saving some of them, but really the post saving the others, like we will all go and kiss that post just like Dane St. Clair did because we sent Seattle home. We sort of think more about Seattle than they think about us, but we really, really took a lot of joy in sending those guys packing in 2025. So I think it's those moments that stand out for me. And, one of the other just little notes about 2025 is it's a team that was set up to play defensive soccer, and they won more games. They secured more points on the road than they did at home for the second straight year. Both of those years under Coach Ramsey, our home form was not peak home form. It was the road form that carried the team. So that's one of the things I'm looking for going forward.
One of the things we've done on a couple of these shows, so I'm going to pull it out here unexpectedly, but I just based off what you're saying, I think probably the perception of the fan base and the experience with Ramsey's style and the team was more positive maybe than what it was nationally, jumping in and watching the team as a neutral. So I've done this a couple times, but Matt, sort of give me an idea what we're missing or what maybe other people don't understand about the experience that the locals had living Eric Ramsey's team week in and week out?
I think for me, as one of the newer fans to the team, it brought us a sense of hope. He came in and he showed right away that he was willing to make some changes and play a different style of soccer. And that is, in fact, what we got. Unfortunately, like we talked about with the home form, it makes it a little bit harder, to see your team do so well over, across the country and not so much at home. But, excuse me, I would think we've touched on it a little bit as well. The long throws and that kind of made for a little bit different of soccer game watching experience, right? We weren't getting a lot of the play of soccer goals or some strategic passes and that kind of thing that you'd normally see with an offense that was fully clicking. But we still were able to squeak out the wins and end up at number 4 in the conference, or in the league. Sorry, conference. But all of that made it seem like we were working really hard for our wins. Right? They weren't just kind of always decisively on the field. We worked really hard for them, and I think that we're looking for some more aggressive offense in the next season here.
And I'll just add to that. I just think winning sort of trumps everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, as a fan of the team, I would rather watch wins sing Wonderwall, whether it's an away game or a home game, than focus on it having to be pretty soccer. I'm not a neutral for Minnesota United.
Right.
So when you're not a neutral for Minnesota United, it's the score line that matters. It's who scored the most goals. And I think we took a lot of joy in last year, even though maybe folks weren't scheduling to watch Minnesota United play soccer game in and game out.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think, obviously with the history of, not great success, finding a way to do it makes sense and is worthwhile, and understanding as well somewhat the economics of, if you're not the highest spending team, like, you have to find an avenue to be good at. My texts were blowing up during some of the playoff games from people who hadn't really watched, and they're like, "What is this? What's happening right now?"
Yeah.
But
we were
I
doing the same thing at some of those games too, David. Like, what is happening right now? What is going on? Is Dane kicking a PK right now? Like, what's going on?
It was wild, and it's an interesting team. Let's go into the offseason then, and let's start with Tom's move, which. I have to warn everyone, Tom is away on paternity leave, so he's sending us these. It's his one outlet, so they are long. They are like we be long. So I will start this one. All the talk around Minnesota United has to start with James Rodriguez. If you asked me even 3 hours before I reported it, I would have said it was bullshit. In fact, I actually did say it was bullshit to the first source who texted me, and initially I said I wasn't even going to bother checking on it. Oops. Let me start by saying, with the terms, non-DP deal through summer plus option for rest of season, you do this deal 100% minimal risk. James is still absolutely elite on the ball. Underlying numbers in Liga MX prove it. 5 goals, 9 assists, top 10% in progressive passes, expected assists, chances, whatever. That will be great. But it doesn't fit what Minnesota was good at last year. The team defended deep, held that 39% possession, lowest in the league. They'll play more with the ball under Cam Knowles, but they want to press a bit higher. Can you do that with James? One technical staffer at another club told me their data team ran the numbers, and James made their slowest player look like N'Golo Kante. I can't wait to see if it works. He then goes on to say Drake Callender, great addition in place of Dane St. Clair, which you had to do. But obviously, the focus is going to be on James Rodriguez. So give me sort of the background. What's the last week been like as James-mania has hit, and what do you make of what this is for Minnesota?
It's hard to put into words even today. I mean, we record our podcast in a few days, and I'm still sort of digesting this information. He's such a global superstar with such a unique skill and set of skills that how he fits into the team is I think going to take a lot of time to really figure out. I think there's ways that this can really be a win-win, right? I mean, we in Minnesota fly over country for a lot of national media, not you guys. You guys do great work covering the breadth of MLS, but like this is putting Minnesota United on a map. Even just in the last few days, the Athletic articles by Tom, conversations on every podcast that pops up into my feed, Minnesota United, like just, we're entering our 10th year. The team is trying to lean into this 10th year celebration, and there's so much other stuff happening in the state that James Rodriguez is just this welcome breath of something to think about, something to talk about that can energize the fan base, energize the team. I mean, we have 2 other Colombians in the team, and they're like, this is amazing. My idol is going to be in the locker room with me. Like I can just imagine training the moment that this leaked just picked up an extra 10%. Everyone's like, okay, we have James Rodriguez coming to the team. He's not going to play 90 minutes every game, but we have this ace, this player that can really unlock defenses a way that we, Emmanuel Reynoso was good, but James Rodriguez, if he doesn't have to press, if he doesn't have to defend, is on a totally new level to anything we've experienced here in Minnesota United. So I think it's an energizing boost during a time in which our sporting director has basically been saying it's been hard to convince players to come to Minnesota. We've had reporting from Andy Greeter in the Pioneer Press saying multiple players have declined contracts with Minnesota United because of the situation in the community. And so for James Rodriguez, South American icon, to come to Minnesota United in this moment, I think is just a real breath of fresh air for fans, for the players, for the club, and really can bring back, I think, just some momentum and energy that had been sucked out of this team during the offseason.
So you touched on it there, so I'm going to go straight to Weeby's line. Matt, we can start with you. So Weeby said, before the World Cup, there are 15 games to be played by Minnesota United. That's 1,350 available minutes. So his over-under line is James Rodriguez, 850 minutes played going into that World Cup, over or under?
I think he's going to be under. I think that, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that he's going to be rotating out around 60 minutes. He's not going to be playing the 90 minutes, but he will definitely be playing as much as possible because we're looking for goals. We're looking for an offense. We'll see what he does this year. We've been kind of screaming about who's going to be our goal scorer, who's going to be our powerhouse this year without Tanny around anymore. And I think we have our answer, and they're going to use him as much as possible. So I would say over.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my line's probably under just because he hasn't been playing since November, and we could lose 3 full games where he's just coming in, playing the last 15 minutes. Austin, the first game of the year, he's probably not playing then. So I'm gonna go under, but I'm also gonna give props to Weeby for such an amazing line right there, because I think that's probably right where it's gonna be at, is that like 850 line.
Don't do that. He doesn't need that. Don't do that. He's an idiot. But if you do, for anyone out there who's just trying to think about it, 15 times 60 is 900. So in theory, if he's playing 60 minutes a game, he would sort of have to play every game at that number, unless the number starts to go up, which, if you're right, Dan, which I think you will be, they're going to have to work him back in. Also, what does the climate look like in terms of has he ever played in the cold like that? Is he going to want to? A lot of this is geared towards being at his peak for the World Cup. And so maybe playing in frigid temperatures in March is not as appealing to him because he's like, I don't want to get hurt. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not saying any of this as a knock, by the way, on James Rodriguez. I think as we have this convo, it's really tough to say, sort of like what Tom said, of you make this move 100% done. But there are other motives, publicity is a motive for this, all of that. And I think that's what's going to be really interesting about the conversation around it. So I'll go slightly under on this line as well. I also think it's a good line, but I don't want to talk about that. And but I agree with both of you of I think he'll be impactful. I think he will be central to what they do. I'm going to make up another one. Over under 0.5 games played for Minnesota United in August of 2026 by James Rodriguez.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. I mean, 15 games out of a 34-game season, that little short-term pre-World Cup guaranteed contract. I mean, I would have loved for this to have been guaranteed for the full year. Mm-hmm. I think once the temperatures shift here and he starts playing games at Allianz, I think he might play the World Cup, and we're going to get a different James post-World Cup. That's been his club form, throughout his career, is just that he peaks for Colombia. He plays well in spurts for club. I I would like to be optimistic and say playing at a packed Allianz, once it hits summer, he's going to realize, really the cold weather games, we probably play 4 of them a year, honestly, right? Like we have a February game this year, we have a March game, and then April 18th is our 3rd home game of the year. So we're not talking about a lot of frigid home games. I think coming back from the World Cup, our summers are awesome. Our summers are beautiful. Like we live through the winters to get to the summer. I would like to say James is going to be on this team for all of 2026.
And I'm going to split the vote because I don't think he's sticking around after the World Cup. I really don't. I mean, I think it's going to take more than a couple renditions of the Wonderwall and some nice Minnesota humidity to keep him around.
Well, he'll get a little lake shack. He'll go fishing. It'll be his whole lifestyle. It'll become his whole personality. All right, let's wrap this all into what are the expectations for 2026 for Minnesota United?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to know. I think coming into 2025, we knew this was, in Ramsey's second year, was a high floor team, a team that I think was solidly in the playoff picture. New coach, new goalie, James Rodriguez experiment, losing our goal scoring and assist leader throughout our 9-year history in Robin Lode to the Chicago Fire. There's a lot of question marks on this team. I think the expectations are that game days for this community getting back together again is just going to bring a lot of joy to a community that's been working hard to protect immigrant communities against what's happening right now in Minnesota. So it's just really, I think, the expectation is that sports and Minnesota United can be a gathering place for a lot of us who've had a really, really long 6 weeks here in Minnesota. On the soccer side, truly the soccer side, I could see this team, if things click, I mean, this is a good club. It's got a solid spine. Drake Callender is a good goalie. Tomas Chancalay for $100,000 from New England on a non-DP deal. James Rodriguez on a non-DP deal. The opportunity to still bring in a DP in theory this summer, if not now, by buying down Joaquin Pereira. Like, there's opportunity for Khaled to really, really make this a really high quality team in the Western Conference. So I think the expectation is I'm excited for game 1 at Allianz on February 28th. And I think it's just going to be fun watching soccer. And I really do think this team is probably a playoff team. I think there's enough holes with other teams in the Western Conference that unless things go really, really poorly, this team, I think, is a solid playoff team in a league in which 9 teams out of 15 make the playoffs.
Matt?
Yeah, and I think that we have a lot of expectations on Cam Knowles. Dan and I had an opportunity to sit down with him and get a chat with him, and I think he's got a great set of ideas on where he wants to go with the team. He's got some experience, and he's looking to show himself, too, as his first head coach role. So I want to see a coach that's going to be a little bit more flexible and trying some new things. I want to see a press. That would be great. And then what was the word we coined in the last episode for the aggression? Was clinical aggression is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I want to see tight passes and just some kind of textbook goal scoring, getting the ball around the defense and getting up into that front third and getting a goal in the net during the scheme of play.
Yeah, run-of-play goals. We're looking for run-of-play goals from Cam Knowles this year.
It might be the end of the long throw.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
I bet you money if we had talked a year ago, you wouldn't have known the XG value of long throws. So, hey, we've all learned something. And in theory, the long throws are the friends we made along the way.
It is.
If you want to know more about Minnesota United, as you should, I could have done this one for an hour. Like, this is one of the most fascinating teams.
This has been an awesome, just a crazy off season. Like, so much to catch up on for us. Like, it was just we did an episode every week because there's been so much news happening. So it's been fun.
And we didn't even hit West Brom and their struggles. So we've still got a lot more to talk about. But listen to the Loony Bins podcast. Follow them on BlueSky for sure. One of my favorite accounts. And I look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks for having us, David.
Yeah, great to see you.